gamification and ethics have always been a contentious issue, and it's becoming much more contentious now with the revelations that Uber have been using gamification and psychological ticks and loopholes to encourage their drivers to work longer hours, work harder, and for less money. Yeah, that's pretty bad actually. But the point is, the critics are now back on this bandwagon of, oh, gamification is evil because evil can be done with gamification. Yeah, now this is like saying a hammer is evil. Why do I say that? A hammer can be used to create beautiful works of art. It can sculpt, it can create houses, it can fix things. But it can also be used to smash the shit out of stuff. Does that make the hammer evil? No, of course not. It's the intent of the person wielding the hammer that's at question. So, is gamification evil because it can do bad things, or bad things can be done with it, more to the point? No, of course not. But it is very powerful. And as Ben Parker said to Peter Parker as he died on the floor in the streets of New York, with great power comes great responsibility. And that is very true of gamification, because there is great power in gamification. The psychology behind gamification and what makes it really work is powerful. And good gamification designers take responsibility for that power. Bad gamification designers blame gamification. Critics blame gamification. And that's fine, I understand that. I understand why they would blame gamification, because it's easy to do that. It's easy to blame video games for violence. It's easy to blame music for violence, and easy to blame films for violence, because otherwise you have to consider society and people and education, and we don't want to do that, it's too complicated. Why blame society and the deep rooted anxiousness of humanity and the psychological damage that is done to humanity by humanity, when we can just say video games do it? Yeah. It was a violent video game, he was violent. Gamification is evil because it can be used for evil, so therefore gamification is evil. When I first started looking at ethics and gamification, I couldn't find much. There wasn't a whole lot going on, so I created my own open gamification code of ethics. You can find it at ethics.gamify.uk. And the core tenet there is don't be evil. It's very simple. And the way you test this is you think to yourself, if I was at the heart of this experience and this was being done to me, would I consider the person who did it to me to be an arsehole? If the answer is yes, then you've probably failed the ethics test there. And you need to start again or find a new employer. Because it's very easy to tip over that line, because what you're doing is you're doing what the client wants, and the client wants more productivity in that instance. And it's very easy to say, well, I've done what the client wanted, and really ethically I should do what the client wants me to do. But what you're not doing is remembering that gamification is entirely user-centric design. It should be focused on the experience the user has. Now, the people I work with in the industry and the people that I respect in the industry all understand this. They are all building experiences that help the user. They have benefits. Is gamification manipulative? Yes, it can be, but really, if you're an ethical gamification designer, the worst case is benign manipulation. And by that I mean that, yes, you are encouraging them to do more than they might have done before, but for the right reason. It's not to work harder and earn more for the company. It's, in the instance of education, it's to study harder, to study smarter, to do more work to improve yourself. And in the long run, the benefit is felt by the user. It's easy for me to sit on my high horse and say, if you think gamification is evil, you are misguided. A good example of how unintended consequences can actually seem evil until you analyse the original intent is my daughter's school, who recently ran, competition's the wrong word, but a prize for not missing a day at school, for 100% attendance. And the prize was extra time at break and no homework for a week. Now, on the surface, that seems fine, fairly harmless. When you consider my daughter is only 9 or 10 years old, you start to realise that actually she doesn't control whether she's in school or not, because I walk her to the gate and kick her through the damn thing. The only reason she's off school is because I have taken her off school. And the only reason she missed a day, as it happened, was because she was ill and she couldn't be in school, because their own policies say that if you are sick, you have to have 24 to 48 hours off school. So when this prize giving happened, of course, she missed out. And she came home really quite upset because she didn't understand why she was being punished for being sick. And even more interestingly, she didn't understand why the school felt that homework was so unimportant that just for turning up every day in the year, just for having your parents walk you through the gate every day that year, homework could be ignored. Because if that was the case, then homework was pointless. Now, I have to agree with her on homework being pointless most of the time, but was the school being evil? If I put myself in their shoes, were they being gits? No, of course not. They had the best of intentions. They have to hit certain targets for attendance, and one of the ways they thought they would do this was by encouraging children to be present. But rewarding presenteeism isn't really rewarding anything worth anything. Reward excellence, don't reward just turning up. So, whilst the intent was honourable, they weren't evil, they were ignorant, because they didn't understand the consequences of the actions. They hadn't considered it. They hadn't considered what it meant to the children to essentially feel like they were being punished for something they couldn't control. And on top of that, they didn't really consider the fact that just throwing away homework for half the students or 90% of the students for a week didn't send out the wrong message about homework. So, when you're considering gamification, back to Peter Parker, with great power comes great responsibility. Now, I don't expect you to put on a mask and cape and be a superhero, although that would be cool. But what I am saying is you must consider what you are trying to achieve and how that makes the user feel. Whether your intentions are pure or your intentions are not pure, it all comes down to the end user's experience, and they will catch you. Users are smart, people are smart. They will catch you out and you will lose them forever. So don't be evil.